Hi, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Nicki Catchpole, Senior Analyst at TBR, and I'm joined again by my analyst colleague, Dave Smith, President of Inflow Analysis. What Dave and I have joined together to endeavor to do is to cover everyone's most favorite topic of the pandemic. And while we know news is literally everywhere, we can't turn on a television without coming across some sort of update or ramification or really anything related to the world in which we're living today. And, it's actually a time where news is exciting and mostly in many bad ways as the fallout that it's had in many of our lives and, the mounting death toll and all the negativity associated with the COVID pandemic. But what Dave and I wanted to focus on today, because we are optimists at heart, is of some of the bright spots that we're seeing in the news, some of the ways that communities and people are coming together, and even corporations, even the kind of the quote unquote, evil corporate America or global enterprises are really stepping up, coming to the plate, and showing that in a time of crisis that there is altruism still out there in the world. And there are so many examples that abound, but Dave and I wanted to just highlight a couple that we thought were really inspirational and that thought might be a bright spot in your day. So Dave, I'll hand it over to you if you have a couple of examples that you've been seeing in your coverage that you'd like to highlight. And I certainly have my list.
Yeah, exactly, Nikki. It's been really heartwarming to see the response from the business community, from the tech community. I'm based here in the Bay Area, and just seeing the tech community response from a charitable standpoint, right? To the epidemic, the pandemic, and reaching out to the community and offering their services for free has been really heartwarming. We have Zoom offering extended free video conferencing services. Right. They've sort of taken off I think it's a 40-minute, time limit. And they're also reaching out to other organizations, higher education, educational institutions, and so forth. Similar as well, too, with Google, offering their educational services, to educational school systems throughout the country, extending services for free. Microsoft is doing the same thing as well, too, with Microsoft Teams and their educational services, offering that to school systems throughout the country for free. And, and all these companies are doing other sort of community-based things as well, too, trying to help out. You have Ring Central, who's offering their Ring Central Office platform and service for free for 3 months. So we're seeing the tech community, offering services, reaching out to the community on a whole, offering their services for free and extending trials, for their other services and what have you. You have Zoho, right, who's offering free emergency services for small businesses who are being hard hit in these times. That's their sort of number one primary community, small businesses, for the most part. And so they're sharing their platform of applications at no cost during this time for those businesses. So we're seeing an outreach and an outpouring of humanitarianism, of charitable giving from these tech companies. They're reaching out. We're seeing more than ever a huge outreach, again, to the educational community, to the healthcare community. All the companies that I mentioned before, from Google, Microsoft, and so forth, are reaching out to the education community on a whole, and the healthcare community, offering free services and just doing whatever they can do. They're extending pay to employees as well, too. So they're taking care of the broader community, but also their internal community of employees as well, too. So we're seeing, a lot of outreach in that respect right now.
Yeah, thank you, David. I think that when we're speaking about these outreach efforts and what is being offered to the communities from these enterprises, that they're all businesses, they need to make money too, that this is where the short and the long term become really interesting. You spoke about Zoho, which will actually be featuring Zoho, shameless plug for next week. Their chief evangelist will be joining us to speak in more depth about what that company in particular is doing. But it's interesting to think about the short term, as in we're right in the middle of the fire, we're putting out the flames, and we're not even really thinking, or most of us, I should say, are not thinking about what's going to happen in 3 months, 6 months, 12 months down the line. And when I think of companies like Zoho or Google or any of the companies offering their CRM services, their collaboration tools and remote learning services for free until, say, May, June, July, or what have you, I start to wonder, maybe that's the jaded analyst in me, as to what's going to happen after that. Is this, in the midst of crisis, a brilliant marketing idea to not only maintain your customer base and to remain afloat yourselves after the pandemic is over, but also attract new customers? What a better beta is to have people who are literally desperate for essential services for you to run, for them to run their everyday businesses, than by attracting them over to your talent pool of other customers. So I think that's one thing to keep in mind. But I'll now pivot to the immediate short term and some examples of some much more altruistic things that we're seeing that clearly do have no longer term implications. I've found a couple of really interesting ones in a couple of different forms. One being I don't know if we call them shoes, but Crocs is donating 10,000 pairs of shoes each day to healthcare workers. So keeping our workers literally on their feet. There's a company called Arena Analytics that I came across. This is a talent acquisition platform, and when they heard that Girl Scout cookie sales, so the organization that makes Girl Scout cookies, were being cut short and facing crisis, they just bought a whole bunch of Girl Scout cookies. Yeah. So then you also hear of other companies like Facebook and other healthcare companies donating essential items such as masks, or engaging in the 3D printing of masks just to help keep up with the choke supply chain and everything that people are facing when they're wondering how they're going to source everything from masks to the ubiquitous toilet paper to really anything that we need to stay safe and happy and healthy in the short term.
Yeah, totally. We're really seeing altruism and humanitarianism, just a giving heart, just coming from all different types of organizations across the board, right? The New England Patriots team plane is now being used to transport 1.2 million N95 masks from Shenzhen, China, to the U.S. to help our healthcare workers, those who are on the front line. So we're seeing this sort of charitable spirit just, coming from everywhere right now, from all different organizations, small, medium, and large. And to your point before, I hope that this lasts beyond this pandemic. It's sort of good to see these companies again put people over profits, people over revenue. But we pray that, to your point again before, that this lasts beyond this time of the pandemic. But it's really good seeing organizations across the board just really being good, citizens, not just corporate citizens, but good citizens of the world and of the country.
Yes, Dave, thanks for that insight. And in wrapping up, before we all start of our respective weekends, even though the definition of what a weekend really means to each of us seems to have shifted, we'd like to end with really saying that this podcast that Dave and I are doing together is also a call to hear your ideas across the board. If you guys are seeing anything out there, or are experiencing any particular trends, or have any stories that you'd like us to feature and share in our podcast, we really want this to be a growing community effort for us all to get together and hopefully become uplifted in some ways. That was the intent of today's podcast, was just to show that, in light of all that's happening, the word silver lining keeps being used, but that's really what it is. It's a silver lining in a dark cloud. And Dave and I want to be realists and focus on what's really happening in the world, but also with a lens to some of the good that it's bringing, both to individuals, communities, and corporations, that will be stories that will be carried on for years and years to come, I'm sure, when we look back. And so before I wrap up, just a reminder, next week, Dave and I will be interviewing Raju from Zoho. He's their chief evangelist. And as Dave and I both cover Zoho as analysts, we've always mutually been, they're actually the ones that brought us together, impressed by the spirit of altruism in their business model and what they do with regards to sustainability and community outreach. So I anticipate that this session will be a really fascinating one as Raju delves into what they're doing in this time of crisis, and some of the moves that Zoho is doing to ensure that their customers and those in the communities are staying productive and safe. So with that, I'll wish you all a good weekend, and stay tuned till next week.
Good weekend, everyone. Bye.